Hello and welcome to Who's the Bossk? It's a Star Wars podcast from laughingplace.com. My name is Mike Celestino. I am your host. I am the lead Southern California reporter and editorial director for Star Wars content at Laughing Place. This is episode 107 of Who's the Bossk, and we are going to be talking about the fifth episode of Star Wars, Obi-Wan Kenobi, on Disney Plus, entitled simply Part 5. And for that discussion, I have invited on the show as a guest my new friend from Twitter and somebody it seems like is pretty well known in the Star Wars community. Her name is Holly Frey. Holly Frey, is that correct?
It's actually Fry.
Fry, okay.
It's a trick spelling just to trip you up.
I apologize for that. Holly Fry. Well, thank you, Holly,
Fun.
for joining me to discuss Star Wars for a little bit. Let's talk about the other stuff that you have going on, because on your Twitter profile, you've got like 4 or 5 podcasts listed there. So let's go through some of those, and if you could just tell me about each one, that would be great. The first one that I saw in there was Criminalia. What's that?
Yeah, so Criminalia is a historical true crime podcast. We do it as a partnership between iHeartRadio and Shondaland Podcast, Shondaland Audio. And it basically, like, each season we pick a type of crime. We started with women poisoners. Right now we are in the middle of Resurrection Men. And we talk about a crime or a criminal of the past. So it's not quite as kind of lascivious as modern true crime. There's like some distance, and we're kind of looking at it from a sociological angle.
Awesome. So what's your favorite true crime podcast that you're not personally involved with?
Oh, why did you do this to me? You're a monster.
Sorry.
I mean, I like all the ones that everyone likes. I like Serial. I both enjoyed and felt embarrassed to be listening to S-Town because it's a little intimate.
Okay.
Yeah, there are many great ones.
Okay. Because I've been meaning to check some of those out, and I just needed some suggestions, I guess.
It's amazing to me what's happened within that genre, because I mean that's even now inspiring like television programming and whatnot. It's incredible what's sprung out of the real crime podcasts. So cool.
It is. It's interesting. It's having a moment right now where people are starting to question, like, is this a great thing? Should we be looking so intimately? Should, amateur sleuths be out TikToking their attempts to like knock on people's doors and interview them, which is all super important conversations to have. It's one of the reasons I like that ours is like, no, that lady poisoned that man 300 years ago. We don't need to worry about that crime at all.
Okay, what's missed in history?
So Missed in History is Stuff You Missed in History Class, which is a history podcast that iHeartRadio does. It used to be part of the Stuff Media and How Stuff Works network before we were all acquired by iHeartRadio. And it's been going for a long time, like over a decade. And we basically take a look at things in history that maybe didn't get taught in your history class, or got taught but not with all of the nuance and details that maybe are a little more important to look at and be critical of.
Excellent. That sounds right up my alley. Yeah, I'm gonna check all these out for sure. Now this third one definitely sounds like it's a Star Wars one full of Sith. Tell me a little bit about how that got started for you.
I actually came onto it after it was started. Brian Young and Mike Pilot and Concetta Parker were all doing that initially when the new movies got announced. They started this podcast, and it's been through other hosts over the years. Amy Ratcliffe hosted it for a little while. When Amy left, I came on, and we just talk about the Star Wars du jour as you do. So
excellent. Hey, I know Amy. She's been on this show.
She's great.
That sounds fantastic. And then finally, we've got Faux-Thentics. I like that title. What's that all about?
That is a show. We haven't done a new episode in a while, but it is so near and dear to my heart. It's actually called Faux-Thentic History. Okay. And we talk about fictional things as though they are real history. So we'll do a military breakdown of the Battle of Hoth and how the strategies behind it worked. Or we will literally talk about Tinker Fairies and where they came from and what their culture is like and how it evolved. And basically anything is fair game, but we have to, within the construct of the show, stay in universe and act as though it is a real thing.
Gotcha. Did you check out that book that came out last year? It was called, I think, The Battles That Changed the Galaxy. It was a Star Wars reference book.
Yes.
that sounds like it would be up your alley if you're into that kind of like
All
fictional
Star
history.
Wars is up my alley.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I apologize for not having checked out your podcast previously. I probably would have known how to pronounce your name if I had. But I am definitely going to do so the next time I have some time on my hands, or next drive that I have. I'm going to plug in one of these. I think Mist in History is jumping out at me as the one I really want to check out first. But let's also introduce Rebecca Mosley, who you may have heard her voice already. I probably should have put this in a different order. Rebecca, you're back from your trip to Ohio. How was that?
It was wonderful. We raised a lot of money for kids there in the Ohio area. So really excited about that. Got to talk Disney. Got to meet up with a lot of Disney fans. So, you know, it's always fun when you can be kind of with your people, you know, with those who understand your passion. And that's what that weekend was about. And it was fantastic.
That's awesome. So Rebecca's back as the guest co-host and / tech for this episode. She'll be piping in for our episode discussion a little bit later. But first, this is Holly's first time on Who's the Bossk, and that means she's legally required to answer the 5 Star Wars questions. Are you ready for this, Holly?
Bring it on. I'm ready.
Okay. This is level 1 of the 5 Star Wars questions, so they're not too tricky just yet. But we're going to start with number 1, which is, what is your earliest Star Wars memory?
It is seeing A New Hope when it was still called Star Wars on opening day, because I am old. Star Wars actually came out on my birthday, so my poor older brother had to take me with him to see it because I was desperate to see it. And so I have that like wonderful memory of like a 6-year-old just being completely engulfed in all of it, as like, you know, the ships go overhead from the audience perspective, and it was over after that. I was done.
I love your tattoos, by the way. You're gesturing, and I can see
I
have a Rebel insignia.
I do have a Rebel insignia. I have the Black Spire Outpost logo.
Oh, great.
I have some other Star Wars ones.
That's fantastic.
This one's a Haunted Mansion. It's not quite so germane for today.
That's up our alley as well, as we are. We work for a Disney-focused news website, so definitely Haunted Mansion fans all around. Number 2, what is your current favorite Star Wars movie or TV show, and why?
Rogue One.
Okay.
I love it desperately. For me, I mean, I love all Star Wars, but I will say for me, the stuff that's most interesting is not necessarily the Jedi-centric Force user stuff. I really like the stories about the grittier side of it and the people that were just trying to make a difference in the galaxy with whatever means they had, and sometimes kind of scraping it together and really kind of testing their own mettle and trying to do a good thing without any sense of being part of a larger magical anything, just knowing that change had to happen. Like, I love that story.
Me too. Love Rogue One as well. And how excited are you for Andor?
Rabies.
Foaming at the mouth, excited.
Yes, okay. 100%.
Great. Well, that's coming up very soon, just a couple months. So pretty psyched for that. Number 3, who is your favorite Star Wars character and why?
Anyone who has known me for 12 seconds already knows it's Greedo. I love Greedo and I love Rhodians as a species. The reason that I love Greedo goes back to that same first seeing of Star Wars, because one, even as a kid, I kind of always felt like a weirdo, which was great when you saw like the Cantina. Everyone's a weirdo in the Star Wars universe, thus no one is a weirdo, and they're all kind of getting along. And when Greedo first popped onto the movie and was speaking with Han Solo, I was like, finally, we're getting an alien, and it's talking with a human, and this is so cool. Wait, what do you mean he's dead? And so ever since then, it's just been a great deal of longing for more Greedo and Rhodians, which thankfully we've gotten a lot more in recent years.
You must have been thrilled in Return of the Jedi when there was a character who looked exactly like Greedo in the background of Jabba's palace, and turned out to be Greedo's cousin Beto, I believe.
Listen, if I'm not mistaken. We don't know what their family's like. They may have a cajillion cousins. I love it.
Well, okay, but since we have a Rhodian enthusiast, I have to know your opinion of the galactic pal, what I would call Baby Greedo.
I was actually looking around. I know I
about.
have him somewhere, but I can't find him in my messy office.
I have 3 of them. I don't know why. I just like had that thing where I was like, I have to order as many as I have to make sure that I get them, and then I ended up with like a colony. And one of them I want to make a little outfit for, and I haven't yet. And part of me wants to see if I can airbrush one to look like the colors of Chusito, like that more rose gold Rhodian look.
Oh,
I think that would be very fun.
That would be very fun.
I mean, I'm not like a kids person. I don't like infants, but if they looked like that, it would be a whole different story for me. Like, yes, 100%. I'll have 8 children like that.
Now you've got me envisioning you walking around with a baby carrier with this adorable little rose gold baby Rhodian with you on all your adventures.
Who doesn't want a baby Bjorn full of Rhodian? That sounds like heaven to me.
No argument here. Okay, number 4. If you happen to live in the fictional Star Wars universe, where would you fit in? What faction would you belong to? Some examples are the Jedi Order, the Sith, the Rebel Alliance, the Empire, the Bounty Hunters, or the Scum and Villainy hanging out in the cantina, or anything else you might come up with. What do you got?
This has actually changed for me recently a little bit, which is that I have always loved Scum and Villainy, but I mean, in my heart, like if there's ever a game, if there's ever, you know, when we did Galactic Star Cruiser initially, like my whole thing was like, I'm going to be a good guy. But then I started to realize I just have a lot more fun being a little bit more of a scoundrel. Like that feels a little more natural to me. So I'm right back to Scum and Villainy as I age, it turns out.
Okay. I like it. Number 5 is called Impression or Possession. This is where the guest has an option to either choose to do a Star Wars impression or simply opt out and tell me about a favorite Star Wars possession they may own. What do you think, Holly?
I mean, I do mimicry stuff, but I'm so oddly self-conscious I cannot do it at the moment. I would need
popular choice.
2.5 cocktails minimum. Ogres need to hook me up. It's actually very hard to choose like favorite possession, but I have to do a category, which is original Star Wars art, which I just love. Like I have 2 pieces behind me that are original, and I commission artists as often as I can, and I like to just say like, your style, do a Rhodian, whatever you want. And so I have a lot of original Greedo art, which I really love. My best friend was just in the Celebration art show, Dawn Murphy, and I have a lot of original pieces from her. I actually have one of them tattooed on me because I loved it so much. So it's original art in general.
Yeah, before we started the stream here, I was admiring your there's a Bossk painting.
Yes.
Above you, behind you on the wall there. And as you know, this podcast is named after Bossk, so I'm a fan, and that artwork looks really, really cool. So
it's so fun. I love it.
Very neat. Okay, that's the end of the 5 Star Wars questions, and that brings us to Star Wars headlines for the week. Let's see. The biggest thing I think coming out of this week was the embargo dropped for this book called Star Wars Shadow of the Sith. I've got it right here by Adam Christopher. Have you read this, Holly?
I have not. I'm behind on my reading. So is
that something you're looking forward to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a big audiobook person. So my next drive to Orlando, which is not that far off, that will be one of the primaries.
Great. So this book is about Lando and Luke actually going on an adventure between episodes 6 and 7. If you watch The Rise of Skywalker, Lando has a line where he talks about having hunted Ochi of Bestoon, the Sith assassin, with Luke. So now they've gone back, and this author, Adam Christopher, has told that story that took place between the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy. I thought it was really well written. It's actually a little bit longer than the average Star Wars novel these days, which I always like that he can go into that kind of depth. And I'm a big fan of these characters. Obviously, we get some interesting villains in there. And I just really enjoyed seeing all these people interacting during that period that, we're still kind of filling in the gaps there between the 2 trilogies. So I appreciate that this book does a great job in telling that story. So highly recommended Star Wars Shadow of the Sith. That's coming out, I think, in about a week and a half.
Mike?
Yes.
Before you move on, I noticed in your review that the term acolyte appears quite a few times.
Yes.
Now, don't we know that there's a series coming up with a similar name? Could this be kind of giving us a little bit of a tease or anything? Do you, in your mind, connect them at all? Or do you think that, I know that's a very broad term like Jedi or Sith, but I was just curious if it kind of sparked in you a hope for that branching off into the series.
Yeah, so there's this dark side cult called the Acolyte of the Beyond, and they were introduced in Chuck Wendig's Star Wars Aftermath novel trilogy. And I don't believe they are force sensitive, but they are like fans of the Sith basically and want to be Sith. They're kind of like Sith cosplayers a little bit. But I know in one of the Aftermath novels, they had acquired Darth Vader's lightsaber. So they're like collecting all these artifacts of the Sith. And the villain one of the villains in Shadow of the Sith is one of these members of the Acolytes of the Beyond. And she has this ancient mask of a Sith that's kind of possessed her. And as far as the Acolyte, the TV series that's coming up goes, I believe that's going to be set like 100 years before the Skywalker saga.
Okay.
And I don't know if it has anything to do with Acolytes of Beyond. I think they're probably just mean Acolyte like in a more general sense, but I wouldn't be surprised if it has something to do with the Sith as well. That would be my guess answer to that question, if that makes sense. Okay, so we also had a comic book come out this week called Bounty Hunters number 24. How about the comics, Holly? You keeping up with those?
I love them and I'm not keeping up with them at all.
Okay.
Bounty Hunters is one of the few that I have tried to keep up with, and I have fallen behind yet again.
Okay. Well, there's still, I have complained about this a little bit on this podcast before, but they're still telling the same story that started literally with issue number 1 of Bounty Hunters about this girl cat Alaya, who is the heir to these 2 warring crime syndicates on the planet Corellia. And she's now been kidnapped by, I don't want to spoil too much, but she's been kidnapped by Crimson Rain. By Crimson Dawn, the crime syndicate. The name of the crossover event is Crimson Rain, and these bounty hunters have teamed up to kind of go and retrieve her. I'm waiting for this story to come to a climax because I want them to move on to other stuff. It's just been going on for literally 2.5 years, and it's fine. It's entertaining. I enjoy it, but I think I'm ready for it to be over. And it seemed like they're building toward a resolution of this storyline, and I hope they get there soon. But good stuff by Ethan Sachs is the writer. Paolo Villanelli is the artist on that book. But next up in Star Wars headlines, there's some 45th anniversary pins revealed for the Star Wars franchise. I think for the original film. Do we have those?
I'm gonna jump in real quick though, because I missed this question. Zach has asked you, Mike, if Ochi worked for Vader. Is he an assassin working for Vader?
That's one of the great things about that book, Star Wars Shadow of the Sith, is that the author, Adam Christopher, really paid attention. I'm sure he had help with the Lucasfilm Story Group probably helped him with this quite a bit, but he really pulled from all the different sources. Like Ochi of Bastoon in the comic books, in the Darth Vader comic books, Ochi is working for Darth Vader in between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So all that stuff gets referenced in the novel Shadow of the Sith. In fact, the whole Ochi's like driving the driving force behind his character right now is he wants to get to the planet Exegol that we see in The Rise of Skywalker. It's kind of the hidden Sith planet where Emperor Palpatine is doing his like cloning experiments and stuff. So Ochi visited that planet in the Darth Vader comics, and he got like a taste of what was going on there, and he thinks it has like ancient mystical Sith healing properties, and he's got like a scarred face, he's got like cybernetic eyes, and he wants to go there and have all that repaired by the Sith. He thinks that they can help him, and it's great that they tied that into the comics. There's a lot of references to that, and they also mention a lot of the characters from other novels and the movies. Obviously, there's just a lot of interconnectivity, which is really what I like to see in those Star Wars novels.
And I will also pull up your article and say hello to Podcast of the Wills. Happy Thursday to you as well. But here's the collection of pins you were mentioning, Mike.
Yeah. Okay. So these are 3 new Star Wars 45th anniversary pins. What do they look like? Okay. This is from the Ralph McQuarrie concept art for the original title and drawing of the character that would become Luke Skywalker there. And the 4 of the main characters in the Millennium Falcon cockpit. Oh, I like that it's in kind of the outline of the the shape of the Millennium Falcon. That's cool.
And then I think this is the real eye-catching piece.
Yeah. That's neat too. So it's Darth Vader in the cockpit of his TIE Advanced, and the pin is in the outline shape of the TIE Advanced too. Those are pretty cool. Where are these available, Rebecca?
I believe that these are all Shop Disney items. So you can find them over at Shop Disney.
And is this one of those things that went up for sale on Shop Disney and was sold out like immediately, or
I don't believe so. I believe that you still have a chance to pick these items up. So I will double check on that. But last I looked, they were still there. So I will check for you though, Mike.
Great. More merchandise news. We had more reveals for Obi-Wan Wednesday yesterday. I think there were some new Black Series figures that I was looking at. The droid that looked like Forlom but is not Forlom. I think it's
one Jack. Is that its name?
One JAC or one Jack. And then you got Tala there in the middle, and the Purge Trooper, who I've already got from the Jedi Fallen Order Black Series figures, but now they've I think this is an updated version because it looks slightly different. I think they called it like Phase 2 Purge Trooper or something. But those are all coming to the Star Wars Black Series from Hasbro, so that's pretty cool. I think I saw somebody saying on Twitter when they saw the Tala Dureth figure, they said, "Oh, it's adding to Hasbro's collections of characters that are already dead." So spoilers for this episode that we're going to talk about later. But yeah, joining Grand Moff Tarkin and all those characters that died right away, and the thing that they appeared in the first time. So there's a Darth Vader from Obi-Wan Kenobi joining the Black Series.
I like how they labeled him the what is it, the Dark Series, the Dark Times.
Yes.
Yeah, the Dark Times.
Before the Dark Times, yes.
And then right. You have the nice logo there on the card as well.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, Airspeeder. That's neat. Yep. That's the what is that collection called? I don't remember. Hasbro's it's for younger kids.
Yep. And then we had another roundup, Mike, because they had some items over there at Mission Fleet is what that
Mission Fleet
is called. But we noticed that at Target there's some sweatpants with the Kenobi logo, a few other items. I like the silhouette there in for the O, and then you've got the lightsaber for the eye, like the logo does. So I like kind of that dual image, that double imagery there, and then you've got some new pops.
Oh, so this is do we know this is his name? Was this revealed previously? Because this is a Funko Pop figure of Roken, the character played by O'Shea Jackson Jr., and it says Kawlan Roken, Kawlan. I didn't know that was his first name. Did we know that before this?
I would not have.
Okay.
I don't know. I meant
get on it.
I meant to go check the credits, and I forgot completely.
Yeah. Okay. I think he's credited in one of the, he gets the title like by itself, so it doesn't even say his character's name. So I think we only knew it was Roken before now, as far as I know. There's a Darth Vader pop.
And then that Mission Fleet item.
Okay. Cool.
And then finally the item that I really want now, not in a few months.
Oh, yeah.
And that is the Lola.
Okay, so I think there's a variety. We're getting a variety of different Lola toys from Hasbro, but this is the most advanced one, right? This is probably the most expensive.
Yes. When you pet her on the head, she'll turn on and beep at you and very puppy like. What do you think, Holly?
I ordered 2 because I want to paint one purple and have like a customized one.
Nice.
Yeah.
But I'll also want to keep one pristine and perfect. So, and maybe I can link them together and make like a scourge that just runs around the house and makes trouble.
All the batteries not included fans are lining up for this one.
It's so cool. I love the way that they kind of kept in mind that how puppy-like Lola is, and so it's gonna be when there's noise. So as you talk to her, she'll move and interact as well. So you have that initial touch kind of, lighting her up, and then from there she'll respond to you as you chit chat with her. And so I'm like, yay!
Wow.
The best.
I love things that beep at and light up at me when I talk to them.
Too.
And is that available for pre-order already?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you can do that probably on Hasbro Pulse, I would guess. And that's going to bring us to the end of Star Wars headlines for this week, for this week, and to our main topic, which is going to be part 5 of Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi, the live-action limited series on Disney Plus. Let's start by asking Holly, what were your expectations going into Obi-Wan Kenobi as a series, and what did you think of the previous 4 episodes, not counting this week's?
So I always try to not let myself get attached to any kind of expectations. I didn't know if we were going to get some variation on the Jonathan Jackson Miller Obi-Wan book that is, technically Legends, but was right on the cusp of that new era cutoff. I was hoping a little bit for Old Plug Eye, the Tusken, but she has not shown herself yet. But I really didn't have a lot going in, but I did not anticipate that it was going to be so Leia-centric, which is fabulous. So those first 4 episodes of getting to see Leia and Bail and Brea together as a family has been magical for me. I've loved it.
Yeah, I would say Leia was probably the big surprise for everybody. I don't know if that leaked, but if it did leak, I wasn't exposed to it. And
me neither.
Were you there? Did you go to Celebration? I think you did go to Celebration. Yeah. Were you there in the big audience for the premiere?
No, I was working at the art show the whole time, so I missed all the stuff.
Yeah. But as far as I know, nobody knew that Leia was going to show up, or at the very least, nobody knew that she was going to be such a big part of the show. And when that first episode cut to Alderaan, and then you see all the handmaidens like dressing the little girl who's not Leia, but who was like pretending to be Leia in that scene. That you could just sense the reaction in that room. Everybody kind of gasping, like, "Oh, we're gonna get Leia in this show."
Did not expect that.
So episode 5, entitled Part 5 with the Roman numeral 5, was released yesterday as of this recording. It was directed by Deborah Chow, again, as are all of these. Written by Joby Harold with Andrew Stanton this episode. So we know Andrew Stanton from Pixar Animation Studios. He wrote Wall-E, Finding Nemo, Monsters, Inc., the Toy Story movies, John Carter. John Carter, right? So he's also directed a live-action adaptation of John Carter of Mars, which did not get a great reception. Holly, have you seen that film?
Underrated. I think that film is so much better than it gets credit for.
Thank you. I was about to give Mike grief for chuckling as he said.
Sorry, no, I know.
You see my hackles raised slightly. I'm maligning John Carter.
I enjoyed John Carter. I thought it was fine. It has this reputation of being a huge disaster. I think mostly because of the title. Honestly, I don't understand why they changed the title to just John. Like, John Carter doesn't tell me anything. John Carter of Mars. That's intriguing. Do you agree with that? No,
I don't know.
Okay.
I see. For me, Mike, I always thought it was that a lot of people were like, "Well, this is just a copy of X, Y, and Z." When in reality, it was the inspiration. For all of it, and it was like, well, I saw this in Star Wars, or I saw this. Well, yes, because those individuals had read these novels and been aware of these stories. And so
I really felt like they should have marketed it that way. Like, all of the legends you've grown up with started from this, and then it would have had a little more groundswell theoretically, but poor John Carter.
Well, regardless, he was able to come on board for this episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is cool. He's still got a great reputation, obviously, from his Pixar work. And let's talk about our overall reactions to this episode. We'll start with you, Holly. What did you think of Part 5?
What a roller coaster, right? Like, I don't know about you, but I am one of those people that sets my alarm because it's 3 a.m. when it drops for me. I set my alarm for 2:50 a.m. I get up in the middle of the night, I watch it, and then I go back to bed. And I was blubbering so bad at the end that I just kind of like sat on the couch dejected for a little while before I could drag my carcass back to bed. Oh my good, like, it's exhilarating and upsetting and terrifying and depressing all at once. That's emotional overload. It was a lot, but wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely agreed on all those counts. So what about you, Rebecca?
It was a travel day for me, so I actually enjoyed it. Sadly, I need to see it again, but sadly on the phone while sitting in an airport. But that all fell away, and
Yeah.
and the experience and everything of the just all of it. I was totally, like I say, I was like, whoa, oh yeah, I forgot I'm in an airport. It was just drew me in, and I was so excited. And even though some of the plot points kind of went where I thought they were going to take me, they did it in ways that I didn't anticipate.
Yeah.
And so I very much, I'm speaking specifically of Riva, because I think I told you from the beginning that there's more. I have
Yeah.
this sense that it's not about power with her. There's a reason she wants to be close to Vader. And so to have that pay off, but kind of in a way that wasn't exactly as I had kind of gone, was really fun.
Yeah, I had a lot of similar reactions that you guys did, but overall, I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was really solid. But I did have, again, like a little kind of a handful of nitpicky stuff that bugged me. And I think like Doobie, your husband, Rebecca, and Laughing Place co-founder Doobie Mosley has pointed out that there's always something silly that doesn't quite make sense. I think even Mac, our friend Mike Mack and coworker Mike Mack on our Slack today was talking about how he's felt the same way, and he pointed out something about this episode that bugged him. And this, it's a lot of little nitpicky stuff, but it all kind of adds up and it starts to gnaw at me a little bit. But I am willing to get past it. I did like in broad strokes. I really enjoyed this episode. I loved the character stuff and the conflict and the flashbacks. And we're gonna get into all that. But let's start at the beginning and kind of work our way through and give our thoughts on all the beats of this episode. It opens on a big surprise, a flashback to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant and Obi-Wan further training Anakin Skywalker to fight with the lightsaber in lightsaber combat. It looks like he's pretty far along in his Padawan training at this point. Holly, were you surprised to see this?
I was.
Yeah.
I was. I have been thinking, like, possibly other people leading up to this point. I was like, man, they really trotted Hayden out for all of the press. And are we only ever going to get to see his face in that one long shot? So it's a little wonderfully startling. I did have this moment, which is probably unique to me, where Anakin says to him, I was beginning to think you weren't coming. And I immediately, of course, thought of Obi-Wan on Kamino being greeted and told we were beginning to think you weren't coming. And he just kind of rolled with it on Kamino. And I was like, is Obi-Wan one of those chronically late people that's so used to being told no one expected him? That's why on Kamino, he's like, all right, let's go look at the club.
I did not make that connection, but that's a wonderful observation.
I love that idea.
I love it. So people are pointing out that they didn't really do a lot of like de-aging work on Hayden Christensen. Did that bother you? Did it bug you that he kind of looked like 40-something-year-old Hayden?
Anybody hopes they look that good in their 40s, right? Like he still looks very youthful. I mean, his features have matured a little bit, but I actually think it would have felt way weirder if they had done a bunch of work. It just would have felt strange. So that doesn't bother me at all. That's such a minor little meh.
Yeah, I pretty much agree on that point. That wasn't one of the things that bugged me. I do like how these flashbacks kind of keep popping up throughout the episode. And of course, the story of the flashback parallels what's actually happening in the present day, what we see happening to Obi-Wan and Darth Vader.
It once again made me wish we'd had 4 in the original in those prequels, because that era of Anakin and Obi-Wan, I would have liked to have seen more. And when they were both, kind of in that age bracket, like, so I just wish we would have had more film footage, more movies of that time between the two of them.
They should make an animated series that takes place between.
Well, I enjoyed that.
Great idea.
I like looking at Hayden and Dean McGregor in those roles on
That's
screen.
That's fair. Okay, so then we cut to the present, which is between episodes 3 and 4, of course, and we're back. We're with Vader on his Star Destroyer, and Riva comes in. There's a whole discussion there. She gets promoted to Grand Inquisitor replacing the other Grand Inquisitor who, we're supposed to think is dead at this point. What do you guys think of this scene? Any thoughts on what happened here?
Do you have the same thing going on that I have right now? We're knowing how this episode plays out. I now want to go back and watch the whole thing again, specifically watching Riva, because now we know she is always acting. Like, she is always pretending to be something she is not, with ambitions she does not have. It's one of the few people in that power structure that's ever made sense to me now, because I'm always like, who would want to work for the Empire? That is a sucky job where you could get killed by your supervisor at any moment. Now I'm like, that one makes sense. But now I really want to like watch her performance once more, like understanding that nuance that's playing out all the time.
Not only do we know Riva's angle now, but we also know that Darth Vader was onto her from earlier. So they both have like a recontextualization of those scenes, which I think is pretty interesting and definitely worth rewatching for those reasons. We go to the planet Jabiim, which is the headquarters of this underground railroad type situation called the Path, where there's like a mass exodus plan with all these Force users and ex-Jedi, and even Kumail Nanjiani's character Haja, who is not a Jedi but was pretending to be a Jedi, and kind of got swept up in this whole thing because he ended up helping Obi-Wan and Leia escape previously. Let's see, there was the droid Lola, who we talked about earlier, has been implanted with this restraining bolt that was not only a tracking device, but it's also causing Lola to go up into the vents and close the escape hatch, the hangar bay doors or whatever, so they can't fly out of the hangar. This big group of escapees cannot escape Jabiim, and that's when the Empire arrives, and this causes a big problem. Let's see. Zach Taft says Jabiim was a place where Anakin and Obi-Wan were deployed back in the Clone Wars in Legends. Oh boy, that's I know that this planet existed before in Legends, and I've seen the comic book covers, but I don't know that I've read that stuff. Have you read that stuff, Holly?
Some of it, and I'm embarrassed to say I have not retained a lot of it.
Yeah,
like I burned right through all those memories, apparently.
Okay. Yes, a good question. I know I looked at it a little bit on Wikipedia, and I know that yes, you're correct. Jabiim was part of the Legends canon. I don't know if I've read those comics and stuff where that planet had appeared previously, but apologies for that. Anyway, they're planning this mass exodus. The doors close down. The Empire shows up. Obi-Wan kind of gives them this pep talk. We don't really need to fight them. We just need to get out of here. And then this standoff happens. Okay, here's one of the things that started to bug me a little bit. So they're arguing about how they're going to get the doors opened up, right? And what's his name? Roken says it's going to take him like 4 hours, and Obi-Wan says you've got one. So it's like kind of like a cliche in movies, but that's fine. And then I think Kumail's character Haja says, "Isn't there a way you can just like go up into the vents and like look at the wiring or whatever?" And Roken says like, "Oh, I can't fit in the vents." And Leia pipes up and says, "I'm going to go up in the vents." And they give her the ladder. She goes up there. When she goes up there, it looks like, to me, it looked like it was big enough, plenty big enough for an adult to fit in. And it was just like right inside the vent, this like wiring that she was playing with. Also, my brain is going like, well, what do they do if there's not like a child around and they need to fix something up there? I don't know. Did that bother anybody else? Was that eating at you? I don't know. To me, it was just like, okay, we need to give Leia something to do, which is fine. I don't know. I was picturing her like crawling through like John McClane in the...
Well, the doorway is tiny.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
The doorway is tiny. So I think probably it's more a matter of that. I don't know how they handle their maintenance needs without a small child around.
Right. But the same question came up remember when Grogu had to go into the little maintenance shaft in the Razor Crest? And I was like, well, what does he do in the case of Grogu not being there? Like,
I think Zach points out they'd send a droid.
Oh yeah, a droid.
You'd send a droid. But I think for me the bigger challenge in this moment was I didn't feel like I'd been set up to believe that Leia was going to be able to fix the problem.
Okay.
And so it was kind of why. I mean, other than being small enough to be in there, why is it that I'm supposed to believe that Leia can, not that I don't believe Leia can do anything she wants to, because, you know, she'll figure it out. That's not, but it's just in that moment, I was just kind of like, I couldn't think of anything that showed me that if she had been the one who maybe had tinkered with Lola and fixed her, or, you know, just something where I felt like she was a tinkerer. I didn't kind of have that perception.
Yeah, plus like later on in the episode, I think Haja calls up and he says, he said it's a red breaker switch or something that you have to flip.
Then
but why
I
didn't
understood.
they tell her that at the beginning?
Right. Then I was like, oh, okay, she's looking to just kind of throw us, because I had the impression that Lola had, like, you know, sliced through a bunch of wires or something.
Right.
So I wasn't exactly sure, you know, what Leia's role was going to be in repairing it. So I was like, okay, well, I'll go with it. I'm good.
Listen, Obi-Wan trusts her.
Right.
Do you trust Obi-Wan?
Yes.
That is what I loved about this sequence, though, was I liked seeing General Kenobi. Yes. And I felt like this was one of the first times in this series where we have really had that taste again. Like, he is beginning to find that within himself again, that general.
Well, and I love, there's an element to it that reminds me a little bit of, you know, the earlier seasons of the Clone Wars series. Like, Obi-Wan is accustomed to seeing a very young girl take care of business and handle stuff. And so it's not a big leap of faith to go, yeah, a 10-year-old can probably handle this. That's not a problem. Like, he's already accustomed to seeing the capabilities of people regardless of their age, which I thought was like a wonderful, very subtle kind of callback to that time of his life.
Sure. And he met Anakin when Anakin was 9.
Yeah.
And he was a tinkerer too, right? So yeah, I believe it. So I did understand the need to kind of get Leia, first of all, give her something to do, give her something to contribute, and then also kind of get her out of the way for everything else.
Mike, find your 10-year-old. Find your inner 10-year-old and chill.
Yeah, my 10-year-old was playing Super Mario Brothers 2. I wasn't anyway, so okay, Obi-Wan gets a message from Bail Organa, and Bail says that he's worried that he hasn't heard anything from Obi-Wan, and he's going to go to Tatooine and look over Luke, because he thinks, you know, if Darth Vader has found out about his 2 children, he's going to want to go and get Luke, and Owen needs some help. And what did you guys think? Any thoughts about that?
I literally had to console myself with the knowledge that Bail survives, because he shows up later in the story. Like that, I was just like, "Oh, baby, no, what are you doing? Don't go to Tatooine. That's not bright."
And I thought of those posters that you always see, like from the war days, of like loose lips sink ships, you know, that kind of like, well, why would you even speak that planet name into what? No, don't say it. He knows.
Yeah, all of his security training just flew right out the window. He's like,
right. And the worst thing about that is that you're absolutely right, as we'll find out in the end. Those exact words, the words that you shouldn't have said, were the ones that came through on the message at the end of the episode. But okay, Obi-Wan has a discussion with what did I say? Tala. Oh yeah, Tala. So Tala comes up and she tells a story about her history with the path and why she's so involved with this cause, which I thought was interesting. Okay, and then we have the big discussion between Obi-Wan and Riva, where we kind of find out, yes, Riva was a youngling at the Jedi Academy, Jedi Temple on Coruscant. She was training to become a Padawan eventually, and then a Jedi. And then she was there when Anakin turned to the dark side, became Darth Vader, and started slaughtering all the younglings. And she managed to... so this is the scene. Obviously, they had this warning at the beginning of the episode that some people might find certain things about this episode disturbing. And there's a line that she has where she says she had to hid among the dead bodies of her friends and pretend to be dead to escape, to survive and escape herself, which of course calls to mind recent current events in a horrible way. But, you know, I'm glad that they put that warning there so people would know to look out for something like that. But yeah, what did you think about finally getting this truth? You mentioned earlier, Rebecca, that you had, you know, kind of theorized that Riva had more to her than we knew already. And I think I had mentioned in previous episodes, I thought she was one of the kids that escaped in the beginning of episode 1.
Yeah. See, I had never bought into the temple thing. I don't know why. I just didn't. But I always had in my mind that Vader had killed her family and she wanted revenge. That was what I had in my mind. And now I'm like, why didn't I connect that the younglings would have been her family? Because we know that, that they're taken from their family at a young age.
Yeah.
And so this would have been her family. Because like I say, for me, it was always, okay, he took her family and she wants to get him back for that. She saw that happen. But I had not connected it with the younglings, and I'm like, I should have seen it.
The actress that they got to play young Riva is amazing because she speaks no words,
right? And
yet one look at her and I get completely choked up. Like she communicates everything instantly.
Mm-hmm.
This was really interesting to me in that I have been obsessed lately, and if you follow me on Twitter, with the psychology around this show and like all of these people who are so clearly trapped in their past and it dominating their every decision, even to their own detriment. And I really just wish like someone would form a support group for all of them. Although obviously Riva and Anakin cannot be in the same one for clear reasons. But yeah, it's like she's so driven by that one thing. Anakin is so driven by his train wreckery. Even Obi-Wan is getting trapped in that cycle, and Tala keeps telling him, like, you got to move past this, my dude. And so I love watching that problem of people experiencing trauma and then it being what determines their actions later in life. And we're kind of getting different snapshots of how that can manifest in people, which to me is super interesting.
Terribly.
Is all of Star Wars just about how childhood trauma affects us later in life?
Yes, kind of.
Yeah, it kind of is, huh? I never really thought about it that way, but that's pretty wonderful observation. Yeah. So this was Mike Mack's little nitpick that Riva had first had all the stormtroopers firing on the blast doors, and they had that E-Web blaster shooting on the door, and then she just slices it open with her lightsabers. Like, why didn't she just do that from the beginning? But I get it. She kind of needed to do it the official way first, and then she goes in and her rage kind of takes over. So then there's this big fight scene between all the stormtroopers and the purge troopers and all the people from the path and everything. First of all, I really enjoyed this action sequence. I thought it was really well staged. I just loved, as a video gamer, again, last week we were talking about Jedi Fallen Order, and a lot of this action scene felt like a video game too, but in a great way. I just really loved all the choreography and getting to see, Obi-Wan with the lightsaber working alongside all these kind of freedom fighters, all with blasters and stuff. To me, I always love like when different classes of combatants are working together, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I love seeing that in Star Wars. Did you have any thoughts about the action scene, either of you?
I mean, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so harrowing. I am not emotionally tall enough to ride the ride that is Ned B's journey. Like, I'm not. That broke me. That's like right up there with K2 yelling climb, climb as he collapses.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I love a droid to begin with, and I love that like there has been that subtle side story going on about Ned doesn't talk, and Leia being like, doesn't mean he doesn't have things he wants to communicate. And like here we get the ultimate communication of care, where it's like, I'm going to protect you as well as I can with my last movement.
Yeah.
That part. Go ahead.
No, and for me, it's like, well, no, in like a rule of movies, you can't kill the dog. I wish Star Wars would stop killing off these droids I love. Like they get me to really love them, and then they're gone.
Yeah,
that part with the thermal detonator made me think of the movie Aliens, the James Cameron Aliens. Yep. There's a scene where I think two of the soldiers get like injured, and they just pull out one of the bombs or grenades that they have. The rest of the team gets to move on, and they blow up one of the aliens. But I don't know if that was a direct homage to that scene or not. But
your heart just breaks for Kenobi, because once again, He's allowed himself to personally invest. I mean, this is how it comes off to me. He's allowed himself to once again kind of personally invest in someone, right? I get the impression on Tatooine, he's kind of, he's isolated. He's not really getting involved with people. He's not developing these bonds. And once again, so he steps back into the world and he develops this bond only to have it severed so just abruptly and tragically. And you're just like, oh, no, this man has had enough loss.
Absolutely. So Ben has another flashback to the training sequence with Anakin, and he decides that the only way they're going to get out of this, the only way the escapees are going to get out is if he surrenders, basically. So he hands all of his possessions over to Haja, his lightsaber, a couple other things, and his little the holo communicator, gives that a lot to Haja, and he goes and turns himself into Riva, which I thought was interesting. And then, okay, they have this whole conversation, Ben and Riva, and Ben has a great line where he's like, okay, he says like, you're not bringing him to me, I'm bringing him to you, which I thought was a really great, terrific line. But then here's another little nitpick that I had about this scene is that, okay, the stormtroopers have him there, and there's a whole bunch of them outside the door of this bunker. And then the two stormtroopers take him inside the bunker where he's very easily able to overpower the two of them and then just run away with their blaster. I just thought that was a mistake on the stormtroopers' part, or if that was part of her plan because she wasn't really working in the Empire's favor anymore. I don't know.
She was trying so hard to prove herself that she was not really seeing clearly. It's the same problem, right? She's like, no, I've trapped him inside. You can go get him.
Yeah.
Well,
I believe it. Okay, Leia manages to open up the doors and she takes the little, what is it called? The restraining bolt, off of Lola and dispenses with that and manages to open up the door so everybody can escape. Vader comes in and the transport's taking off and we see him grab a hold of it with the Force and pull it back down to the ground. A big dramatic moment. We've always wanted to see something like this happen. And then guess what? He's been fooled by a decoy because it turns out nobody's on that transport. They're all on the other transport and that one takes off right away. And he doesn't even have time to do it again. And then there's a big fight scene between Vader and Riva because Riva tries to sneak up behind Vader and stab him in the back, but he, of course, knew what was going on that whole time. Any thoughts on this showdown, Holly? What did you think of this scene between Vader and Riva at the end there?
Oh, girl, don't try to sneak up on Darth Vader. Well, and here's what I really, really loved was when Vader said essentially like, oh, Obi-Wan was really smart to use you. And I was like, oh, like it was just another layer of people playing each other. This was like such a David Mamet level game of chess. I couldn't even deal with it. But it's so interesting, right? Because she is, I mean, at that point, she cracks open. We get everything inside the coconut. We see all of like the anger and the pain and the fury that she's been holding. And then to have him quietly be like, yeah, I know. Oh, that was amazing. It was great.
Yeah, this is probably my favorite scene in the whole episode. I really love this showdown between Vader and Riva and both the action fight choreography and the character stuff. Really well acted on every side, for sure. And then it ends with the big reveal that people have been suspecting for episodes. The Grand Inquisitor, the previous Grand Inquisitor, is back. He did not die from his injuries in episode 2.
How did they have such a compelling fight when no punches were laid? I mean, that was that's what was amazing to me was, she didn't even, get, it wasn't like she kind of wounded him or he would, block her. It like literally with the Force, it wasn't even like, and yet it was so compelling to watch. When the episode was over, I rewound and watched that exchange between Vader and Riva again, because it was just so fascinating and interesting. And I couldn't think of a time when I'd really seen a fight quite like that before within the Star Wars framework.
Absolutely. Holly, I have a question for you.
Yes.
There's a big conversation right now that I've noticed on Star Wars Twitter, where people are getting upset about stuff in early episodes
What?
of these
On
series.
Star Wars Twitter? What?
No, I know, but specifically, okay, the Grand Inquisitor looked like he got killed in part 2 of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Everybody's like, oh, that breaks continuity because he shows up later in the timeline in Star Wars Rebels. Why don't people understand that, like, you kind of have to wait for this part of the story to be over before you can really, what's going on there? Like, I feel like the same phenomenon is happening with Obi-Wan's arc in this series, because yes, he started off, he even has a couple lines in the first episode where he says, like, I'm not the man I used to be. He starts off, his muscles have atrophied, both in a literal sense and in like the Force sense. He needs to reconnect to the Force and learn how to be a warrior again. So that doesn't happen until a few episodes in. Is it just impatience, or are people just forgetting how story structure works? I don't know. What do you think?
I think it goes back to the lesson of this entire thing about trying to prove yourself all the time.
Yeah.
Blinds you, because the part of the problem, I think, is that everyone wants to have the fastest take and be the first to point out their perceived flaw. And as a consequence, like, it's like if you stood up halfway through a movie that you were in and went,
Yes.
I don't believe that for a minute. It's like, well, great,
Right.
sit down, dude. Maybe it will play out. It's a weird thing to me to allegedly love a thing so much but not trust any of the creators of it.
Right.
It's a very strange psychological phenomenon. But I think impatience is part of it. But I really think a lot of it is just trying to like show I'm the most clever. Look at my assessment, and then it's like, but you don't have all the information.
I think yes, the last thing you said there really resonates with me, because I was of the generation. I was 19 years old when The Phantom Menace came out, and I was in film school at the time, and the impulse among me and my friends was to think, well, how could we have done this better?
Right.
You know, so I see that and I understand that instinct, and I feel like I've matured out of that instinct, but I kind of get how younger people are approaching it and saying like, okay, well, here's how I would have made the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. He would have been a badass the whole time or whatever. Right. But like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it goes back to Luke's arc in The Last Jedi too, where I think people were disappointed for the same reason, but characters have to evolve. They have to change, or there's no story, you know? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's a weird ongoing problem of everybody wants their favorite character to always be kicking ass, and it's like, well, that's neat in like a video game, but it's not really very compelling from a story standpoint. Like, great, I start great and I stay great and I end great. Like, that's not, there's no drama.
Exactly.
That's a superhero film,
right? And even they go through their own, you know, mental or physical tortures that drop them back a few pegs.
I guess I should say that's the superhero films of the 80s. The modern superhero film.
That's the Super Friends, Holly. They have no psychological development.
Exactly.
Okay, so the last bit of this episode, Riva is left for dead by Darth Vader and the Grand Inquisitor. By the way, I feel like this is just like a recurring issue in Star Wars. What if you want, I don't know. They clearly don't want Riva to be around anymore, but they're just kind of leaving her and assuming that she's going to die from that injury. The same thing happens with Obi-Wan and Anakin on Mustafar. Obi-Wan just kind of leaves him there, and then the Emperor shows up, turns him into Darth Vader. Like, you got to learn the lesson from Zombieland of double tapping, I think, right?
Well, I think, in the case of Obi-Wan and Anakin, Obi-Wan didn't have the heart to deliver the final blow.
Sure, it's not the Jedi way.
This is a reversal where it's more like, no, I want her to suffer. I want agony for as long as possible before I'm convinced I've done a good enough job.
Right.
Now she can just be miserable until it's over.
I guess so, yeah. So that makes sense for that reason, I suppose. And then we cut to the escaping transport. Roken says the hyperdrive is not working and that they're being pursued by the Empire, which is just like out of the frying pan and into the fryer. But Obi-Wan kind of gets the sense that something else is happening down on the surface, and we see Riva crawling through the dirt, and she finds that the communicator, the holo projector, whatever, that okay, this is another little minor nitpick about this episode. There's that shot of Kumail Haja. He's got all of Obi-Wan's possessions, and somebody's like, "Oh, we got to get out of here. Don't worry. Don't worry about the stuff or whatever." And he drops the communicator on the ground, and he just kind of like looks back at it and keeps running toward the transport. And I'm like, well,
fault.
It's not your stuff. It's Obi-Wan's stuff that he had you watching for him. It's not yours to decide whether or not that's worth going back for and grabbing. I think it might be important for Obi-Wan to retain, especially because of the information that's on there. Yeah, what's up?
No, this guy was introduced to us as a guy of like questionable virtue.
But he's trying to turn his life around. He's trying to be a better person.
That doesn't just magically happen in a single moment and then, now I am virtuous and all. I mean, the guy's like, in essence, the 3-card Monty guy on the corner. Do you think he's going to worry about whether or not when his own skin is on the line,
right?
He's going to worry about Obi-Wan stuff? I don't know. I totally buy that into the character that they introduced to me.
But he also, earlier in the episode, he says, like, I'm not going to babysit Leia. And then Obi-Wan just walks away and he babysits Leia. He like sits there and helps her and like keeps calling up to her. I think he puts on a false front of being that person, but he really does care and wants to help out. I don't know.
Worth noting also that he is actually running for his life in that moment.
Yes.
Right. Like,
sure.
I mean, if you drop your phone while an alligator is chasing you, you're like, go with God, phone. Like the alligator gets you. I'm not going to reach back and get it.
Nope.
All right. If it was his communicator, I would be fine with it. But it was put in his charge by Obi-Wan.
I'm more inclined to think he would be worried about his own communicator than he would be about Obi-Wan's communicator, about Kenobi's communicator. He's not going to even less care about.
Anyway, it had to happen because it sets up the whole finale of this episode, and I'm sure what we're going to see in the finale next week in the final episode. Riva finds this message from Bail Organa. So somebody has stepped on the communicator and it's broken, but it still manages to cough out the 3 words that she needs to put it together: Tatooine. And yeah, exactly. How does this still work after all the damage? Well, it barely works, but it does say Tatooine and the boy and Owen. So she's remembering that conversation that she had with Uncle Owen Lars down on Tatooine in the first episode. So I'm thinking Riva's going to go back to Tatooine in the finale. Something's going to happen down there. Darth Vader can't find out about Luke being on Tatooine. That would really break the continuity, right? I don't think that's going to happen. But we do cut to Luke. We see Obi-Wan kind of either he has a force connection with Luke, or we do cut to his envisioning Luke sleeping in his bed in the Lars homestead on Tatooine. Holly, what did you think of the end of this episode?
Well, I mean, it's a gasper, right? When they cut to Luke, you just realize like, oh man, this kid is in peril. Yeah. This isn't a nitpick, but it's just a funny moment to me that you had just mentioned, Roken sits down, he's like, we've got no hyperdrive and they're on our tail. Yeah. And almost like he's going to Obi-Wan for help. Obi-Wan has his force vision or whatever. And then he goes, thank you. And Roken's just like, wait, hyperdrive? But it just occurred to me, there's a very interesting possibility here. And I usually don't enjoy speculation, but I'm going to do it this time. So if Riva goes to Tatooine and she, meets up with, discovers / learns about little Luke, and it's like, hi, I'm Luke Skywalker. She's going to do the math. Can you imagine if she's the person that has that information and is trying to deliver it to Vader when Vader kills her?
That would be the ultimate irony. And now that you say that, I can totally see it happening. But also, I think Obi-Wan's going to be like, why didn't we change that kid's last name?
Or she's going to have a noble moment where she withholds the information and possibly dies for it.
Do you think Riva will survive the end of the series? Or do you think she's going to die?
I don't want her to die because I'm really enjoying her, but I think she might be doomed. Whether or not she gets some sort of closure to her own stuff, I mean, Vader's not going to die, so. But
right.
I have a different expectation, but I'm gonna keep it off the table because I like Holly. Don't like to speculate.
Oh, I want to know what your expectation.
Well, I can tell you later. I can
Okay.
I'll slack you.
Well, next week
But
you can tell me.
I don't like other people to then be like, oh man, that would have been a fun reveal, but I'd already
Okay.
kind of had it planted in my head. So
You're so confident that it's gonna happen
I am.
that you don't want to spoil people with your speculation.
Exactly.
You know, I have done that once before, and I was right. So
yeah, and then I feel guilty. Yeah. Oh, did we lose Holly?
Oh no.
Oh, I think we lost Holly.
Hopefully she'll come back.
I hope so. In the meantime, Mike, man, I want you to just relax and be that 10-year-old little boy and not get caught up in all these little moments, you and Mike Mack and even my husband to an extent. But while I was in Ohio, I actually I got to rewatch the first few episodes because my friend Anita had not yet seen them, so we watched all of them. Do you think I should remove her camera and then see if she just logs back in?
Yeah,
or
let's do it that way.
Okay. And then
let me see if maybe she emailed me.
Okay. But we'll see if she can find her way back in. But okay. Yeah, no. So I got to rewatch all of them, and I got to watch them with her, and she's like a really big Star Wars fan, and so it was fun to me knowing what was coming. I got to wait and get her feel for it, and she really enjoyed it, and that made me glad. She had some of the similar nitpicks that we did. Why didn't you just go around the fence?
Yeah,
things like that. But you go with it. It's Star Wars.
No, it's fine. Yeah, I don't have any major issues. Even like rewatching this episode, I thought it played a little bit better than it did for me the first time. So I'm not really like I've already kind of prepared myself for that kind of stuff, I think.
Yeah. I'm sorry we lost Holly.
Yeah. We could wait a minute for her to come back.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
No,
well, maybe while we wait for Holly to come back, I'll just kind of read off the cast here. Okay. I don't think there were any major new characters that showed up in this episode. So we had Ewan McGregor back, of course, as Obi-Wan Kenobi. Moses Ingram was Riva. O'Shea Jackson Jr. was Roken. Vivian Lyra Blair was Leia again. Maya Erskine was Sully. Indira Varma was Tala. Kumail Nanjiani was Haja Estri. Maurice Alvarez was Naichi. Rupert Friend is back as the Grand Inquisitor. James Earl Jones, either actually the voice of Darth Vader or simulated voice of Darth Vader. We're still not sure about that. Jimmy Smits in another appearance as Bail Organa, just via the hologram, although I'm sure he'll show up again in the next episode. Hayden Christensen as actual Anakin Skywalker in the flashback this time. Indy Desroches was Corran. So Corran Horn, I think everybody's kind of theorizing that this is the character from the Legends continuity, actually got to meet Leia in this episode. And then Grant Feely again as Luke Skywalker, kind of a surprise appearance there at the end. How are we doing? Did she come back?
I haven't received any communications. I'm wondering if they just had an internet issue of epic proportions. So
could be her internet went down.
Yep.
Let's see.
I checked email. I haven't received communique there either. So
okay.
In the meantime, hey everybody, look! I finally got one of those Rockalove necklaces.
Oh, which one did you get?
Luke. I got Luke's saber.
Oh, nice. Very cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to share pictures of it on Barely Necessities. It is even better in person. I had kind of waffled on it, but if I'd have seen this in person, there would have been no waffling. The internet images do not do it justice, and the weight of it feels so fantastic, and I am absolutely in love with it. So I'm gonna have to get another one. I'm not sure if I'm gonna follow up with a Mace Windu or if I'm gonna follow up with a Yoda or a Rey. There's a couple of sabers that like really jump out at me, so we'll see. But I started off with Luke, and it was amazing because when I first saw that this was the one I had, because it was a gift from Ben. But when I saw that this was the one I received, I burst into tears like I did when he showed up to save Grogu. It was just like, so bizarre. Like all of that emotion from that moment seemed to be wrapped up in this piece of jewelry, and I was just like, oh
Yeah.
I'm so done. It's so yeah. So every time I put it on, it's just such a good feeling. I'm so happy. So
Oh, that's great.
yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it still makes me think of a ring pop though.
Seriously. Ring pop. Me and my ring pop necklace. So I'm liking it.
I'm gonna email her and see.
Okay. I'll let you do that. Meanwhile, as far as where this series is, I think I'm going to talk about the series a little bit because I can't believe they're taking us back to Tatooine. So it's very funny to me that we're all finding our way back. It seems like everything is pointing us towards we're all going to be on Tatooine. I'm very interested to see who will show up on Tatooine, and will Mike get his Qui-Gon? Will Mike get his Qui-Gon appearance? Because you're hoping that Qui-Gon Jinn will somehow appear, as I recall.
Well, I think I predicted that he definitely will appear, which
yeah,
I'll actually be shocked if he doesn't.
So we'll have to see if Mike gets that. I wouldn't mind seeing Obi-Wan on some other sort of creature of some sort of Tatooine creature, not that camel looking thing, but something a bit more fascinating than that. Oh, I see an email, Mr. Mike. Oh, she lost power.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think we're going to have to continue without Holly.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll tell her we'll wrap up without her.
Okay. Thanks everybody for sticking with us while we worked through this. One of the joys of the internet age is sometimes the internet goes out, sometimes the power goes out. You just kind of wait a moment and see which one it is. But we appreciate you sticking with us. Mike will be able to clip all this out of his podcast.
Yeah, I think what I'm gonna do. So we'll wrap up here without her, and then I'll record the rest with her over Zoom.
Fantastic. Yeah.
But let's just wrap up by talking about just kind of our thoughts about the finale coming up. Like, what are you expecting or hoping? So you kind of already talked about.
I expect a face off with Riva regarding Luke, and so I am interested to, because I don't know how though, because she seems terribly wounded, but I'm expecting her to have found her way to Tatooine. Oh, here she is, Mike. We've got her back.
Great.
Yay! Apologies. Our power just went black for a sec.
That's okay.
Everything went kaboomy.
Welcome back. We pretty much just went through the cast and we talked a little bit about our expectations for the finale. So Holly, what are you hoping for and what do you expect to see in the final episode next week?
Well, I already mentioned my theoretical Riva information thing. I mean, beyond that, I feel like there's so much that has to happen in the next episode.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got to have a lot more Vader, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
What I really hope is that Obi-Wan has whatever that moment is that he needs to make him the dude that we meet in A New Hope, where he's a little more chill and he understands he's still connected to the Force and fully functional with it, but not dominated by his fear of it. Like, I really want to see Obi-Wan land in a good place more than anything. And of course, Leia has to be safe as houses.
And I had predicted, we were talking about this a minute ago, but I had predicted that Liam Neeson will almost definitely show up as Qui-Gon Jinn in a Force vision. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, if he doesn't show up in a Force vision, we have to at least get his voice, right? He has to finally communicate back to Obi-Wan, because that's, I think, what gets Obi-Wan over that hump.
Ooh, Zach has a theory that would make Mike very happy, because I know you're quite fond of Owen, and his theory is that Obi and Riva. By the way, that's since Zach has said it too, I'll say it. My expectation was that Obi and Riva would come to blows over Luke.
Yeah.
But then Zach adds in the element of Owen will finish the job.
That would be awesome. I think Joel Edgerton is fantastic as Uncle Owen. I hope that he has some major screen time in Part 6. That would be my wish for the finale. And then just kind of taking a step backwards since you got cut off there, Holly, was there anything else you wanted to say about episode 5 before we...
Let me look at my notes real quick.
Okay, great. Yeah.
I made notes.
Sure. Absolutely.
I covered it. I covered it. We're good.
Good. Excellent. So that's our discussion of part 5 of Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi on Disney Plus. We're going to wrap up this week's episode of Who's the Boss with our final segment. It's called First Steps into a Larger World. And this is where we talk about the media that we've been consuming and or enjoying outside of Star Wars. My choice this week is the new Pixar movie called Lightyear, which I saw at a press screening, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was very good. I didn't think it was top tier Pixar or anything like that. It didn't make me cry as a lot of Pixar movies do, but I did think it was very entertaining and visually very like stunning, actually. Probably one of the most, definitely, you know, as the technology keeps advancing, the Pixar films seem to get more visually impressive. So I would recommend it for sure on those levels. Very funny too. Great cast, wonderful voice cast. So yeah, check out Lightyear. How about you, Holly? Anything that you've been enjoying, reading, playing?
So I'm
watching?
super late to the party because I've been traveling a bunch and haven't had a chance to watch it until now, but I just blazed through the new season of Kids in the Hall.
Oh, I love Kids in the Hall. I watched all that too. Yeah, that was great.
What an incredibly fun return to form for them. Like,
yes,
they're as sharp as ever. They're as funny as ever. They make fun of themselves and the fact that they've aged in ways that are so charming.
Yes.
I had almost forgotten how formative Kids in the Hall had been to my entire sense of humor. And then it feels like being with old friends again. I'm like, yep, this is correct.
I feel the exact same way. Loved the new season. Thought it was really fantastic and funny. Speaking of taking digs at their own age, I love that line when they first get dug up in the first episode and Dave Foley says, "Am I still the cute one?" And
I love Scott Thompson's take of,
yeah.
And we get Eddie Izzard. I mean,
right. Yes. Eddie Izzard in the bathtub sketch, right? Yeah. Oh boy, very, very funny. Check that out. And that was on Amazon Prime, I believe. Yeah, of the many streaming services. Kind of along the same lines. I just watched the new season of Reno 911, which I don't know if you're into that show. I haven't watched
yet, and I love that show.
I got the same response really from that. I was always a fan when it was on Comedy Central. Now they made this new season for the Roku channel, and I think they're even funnier than they used to be. Like, I think they've only gotten better with time. So recommend both of those. How about you, Rebecca? What have you been? I know you were out in Ohio, so maybe pretty busy.
Oh, but in the travels, I discovered a podcast that's been around for, let's see, since the beginning of the year, and I have been listening to it now. And it is Fly on the Wall with Dana Carvey and David Spade. I did not grow up watching Saturday Night Live because I was never home on a Saturday night. But I've become aware of a lot of it through osmosis.
Yeah,
the mind of a comedian and their quick wit and everything, I just adore it. And so listening to this podcast and hearing stories from Conan O'Brien, from Molly Shannon, along with, of course, Dana Carvey and David Spade. And then even the last one I was just listening to this morning was Tom Hanks. Just the dialogue between them and the creativity and learning about that whole aspect of entertainment. Loving it. And it's such a good place, like the spirit of mind that it puts me in with the realities of life has been very much appreciated. My little bubble for an hour or so.
Love it.
Yeah, you guys are both speaking my language with your choices because, as you know, I'm a big comedy fan. So I've always been interested in the history of Saturday Night Live and the behind the scenes stuff. There's a wonderful book, if you go back and pick it up, called Live from New York. And it's just like an oral history of Saturday Night Live. It was written probably 20 years ago now, but it has basically interviews with everybody involved with the show up to that point. Really, really fantastic oral history of SNL. But yeah, that's First Steps into a Larger World. That's going to bring us to the end of this week's episode of Who's the Bossk. I really want to thank my guest and new friend on Twitter, Holly Frey. Holly, thank you for taking some time out of your week to come chat about Star Wars with us.
Are you kidding? This is heaven. Thank you for having me. Sorry, I decided to be very dramatic and blip out for a minute.
That's okay. Most of that's going to get cut out in post, so it'll be like you weren't even gone. And Rebecca, thank you for helping out again, and we'll see you next week for the finale. You excited?
I am really excited. Thanks as always, Mike, for letting me be the Shinnick fan to your Boba Fett.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Nice time with that.
All right, that's going to wrap up Who's the Boss for this week. As always, visit laughingplace.com for all your Disney news and opinions. My name is Mike Celestino. Thank you so much for listening. See you real soon. Thanks. Bye.